It all started with a jacket. Not a metaphor. A literal jacket, gray, slim cut, faint scent of cologne I'd never worn in my life. I found it on the back of our living room chair one Tuesday evening. You know the kind of chair I mean, the one nobody really uses except for flinging stuff on. My wife, Claire, said she'd been working late again. I'd made peace with that months ago. She was always working late. My wife and her laptop had a more intimate relationship than we did. But this jacket, this wasn't hers. And it sure as daylight wasn't mine. I stared at it for a good 30 seconds, half hoping it would sprout legs, apologize for the inconvenience, and walk out the front door. Instead, I picked it up. Soft. Pricey. Still warm. Claire was upstairs, probably just out of the shower. I heard the faint hum of a blow dryer and that off-tune humming she did when she thought no one was listening. I looked at the label. Benedict and Gray. Luxury men's outerwear. The kind of brand I couldn't pronounce without checking the syllables. It hit me like a whisper in a thunderstorm. There was a man in my house. Or at least, had been. Now, I know what you're thinking. Maybe it's your brother's. Maybe it's the cleaner's. Maybe your neighbor came in and... No, because Claire didn't have a brother. We didn't have a cleaner. And the only thing the neighbor ever brought inside our house was passive-aggressive comments about the height of our hedges. So I did what any level-headed, emotionally grounded, totally not panicking husband would do. I hung the jacket up neatly, poured myself a whiskey, and stared at it like it held the answers to every question I hadn't had the courage to ask. By the time Claire came downstairs, towel around her shoulders and hair smelling like citrus and betrayal, I was on my second drink. She froze. Just for a second. When her eyes locked onto the jacket. Then she smiled. Oh, that's Ben's. From the office. He must have left it when he stopped by yesterday to drop off those files. Ben from the office. Of course. Except, she told me yesterday she worked late. No mention of anyone dropping by. And Ben? He's allergic to our dog. Breaks into hives just looking at fur. Yet somehow he swung by our house, the house of our furball, Max, for a casual file drop? I nodded like a man who had just been told the earth was flat but decided it wasn't worth arguing over. Right? I said. Ben's. Claire looked at me too long. The way someone looks at a person who might already know too much. And right then, I knew something wasn't adding up. Maybe not the whole equation, but one variable was way off. I didn't push her. Not yet. Because sometimes the truth needs a little silence to grow in. And sometimes, a jacket is more than a jacket. Sometimes, it's the first thread in a life about to unravel. The next morning was too quiet. The kind of quiet that didn't feel earned. You know, like the kind you get after a storm, but before you see the damage. Claire had already left for work when I came downstairs. Her coffee mug was in the sink, still warm. Max sniffed at it, then looked up at me like, you smell that too, right? And yeah, I did. That jacket, Ben's jacket, was still hanging by the door. If it really belonged to this file-dropping phantom, wouldn't she have taken it back to the office? Or texted him to pick it up? Or, mentioned it again? She hadn't. Not a word. So, I did something I hadn't done in our marriage until that morning. I lied. I texted her. Hey, did you remember to return Ben's jacket? 10 minutes. No reply. 30. Nothing. An hour. She finally wrote back. Oh shoot, forgot. We'll do it tomorrow. No punctuation. No emoji. Just factory line damage control. But here's the kicker Claire doesn't forget. Claire is the human equivalent of a labeled spice rack. Color-coded. Balanced. Unflappable. But that reply? That was a flap. So I started playing dumb, a role I was beginning to master. I called her office, pretending I was looking for her. Receptionist. Oh, Claire didn't come in today. She called out, said she was under the weather. Under the weather. Of course. My wife was homesick. Without telling me. After leaving early. After lying about the jacket. After offering me an explanation with the emotional weight of a post-it note. Something inside me buckled a little. Not broke. Just bent. Like metal under pressure, it holds until it doesn't. I didn't call her out. I didn't storm home. That's what people do in soap operas, and I'm not built for drama. I'm built for proof. So instead, I drove to the parking garage near her office, the one with the cameras. And guess what? Her car wasn't there. Not in her spot. Not even illegally parked, which she'd done a dozen times before. I knew every scratch on that blue Honda like I knew the sound of her laugh before it stopped reaching her eyes. And that's when it happened. Right there, staring at the empty space that should have held her car, I felt it, the first solid pang of confirmation. This wasn't just my imagination. This wasn't just late nights at work. This was real. Something was happening behind my back. And I just stepped into the part of the movie where the hero realizes he's not the hero, he's the fool in the first act. I got home earlier than usual that day. Didn't even turn on the lights. Just stood there in the doorway, letting the silence say everything I already suspected. Her car was in the driveway. So, I waited. Call it foolish, call it calculated. But I didn't want to confront Claire without certainty. And I knew exactly where to look. See, she had this ritual. Every night, after dinner, she'd crack open her laptop. Work, she said. Emails, presentations, spreadsheets. The glowing screen was her alibi, night after night. Except tonight, there was no glow. Just her, sitting on the couch, bare feet tucked under her, flipping through her phone like she was waiting for a sign from the universe. Her laptop sat on the coffee table, closed. I nodded toward it. Not working tonight? She didn't flinch. That's what got me the most. Not fear. Not guilt. Just an offhand shrug. Did most of it earlier. Tired. I sat down across from her. Max curled at my feet like a silent witness. You left early this morning, I said, casually. Before I got up. Another shrug. Didn't want to wake you. And you didn't go to the office. This time, a blink. I wasn't feeling great. Right? I said slowly. Sick day. She nodded. So what did you do while you were resting? That made her pause. Not long. Just long enough for someone trying to edit the answer before it left her mouth. Just stayed in. Slept, mostly. Now, I'm no detective. But if you're sleeping all day, your phone doesn't rack up 63 new messages from someone named C. Especially not while your laptop sits there, cold, untouched. Didn't touch your computer all day? I asked, like I was inquiring about the weather. Nope. I reached out and pressed the power button. Nothing. It was off. Not sleep mode. Not low battery. Fully powered down. Unplugged. Like it hadn't been touched at all. Strange, I said. Didn't think you shut it off last night either. Claire's eyes narrowed. What are you getting at? And there it was, the tone shift. The quiet tremor that said, he knows. I smiled. Calm. Measured. I'm not getting at anything. Just seems weird, you know? You've been working so hard lately. All those late nights. Thought your laptop was practically part of your body. She stood. I'm going to bed. No protest. No, I'm not lying. Just escape. I let her go. Not because I was letting it slide, but because now, I wasn't guessing anymore. She hadn't been working late. She wasn't sick. And that laptop hadn't been touched in 36 hours. But the man she was touching? He had. That night, I didn't sleep. Not out of rage. Not even heartbreak. Just strategy. You learn something about yourself when your heart gets ambushed. Some people unravel, others rebuild. I rebuilt. Brick by brick. Plan by plan. And the first brick? Her laptop. Claire had never been paranoid. Never thought twice about passwords. Trust had been our unspoken policy. Well, mostly mine. She just enjoyed the perks. So while she snored softly upstairs, peacefully, I might add, I sat on the living room floor with her laptop, a cold cup of coffee, and a need for truth that outweighed any guilt. The password was still our dog's name. Lowercase, no numbers. It felt insulting, honestly. Like betrayal shouldn't be this easy to access. Her desktop was clean, too clean. No clutter. No chaos. Just a few folders that reeked of decoy, Q1 reports, budget 2025, and photos for frame. Cute. I checked the browser first. Safari? Empty. Chrome? Also spotless. Then I remembered, Claire never closed tabs. She was the queen of digital hoarding. If her browser was empty, she'd cleaned it. Which meant she had something to hide. Unless. I opened the email app. That's when I found it. Not in her inbox. No, she wasn't that sloppy. But in her drafts. 19 drafts. All to the same email address. c.wolf.consulting@gmail.com. None sent. All saved. The newest one? Less than 24 hours old. Subject, tonight. I didn't know what to say to him. He asked about work. About the laptop. I think he suspects something. I'll try to keep things cool, but we may need to adjust the timeline. And please, don't text me tonight. He's acting strange. See? Timeline. That word hit harder than anything else. Not sorry, not scared, not guilt. Just timeline. Like I was a hurdle on a project plan. I clicked on the previous drafts. Some were short. Others read like love letters written in a panic. I wish you could have seen his face when I lied. I hate that I'm good at it. He still thinks we're just distant, that we're in a slump. He has no idea. I told him you were from work, that the jacket was yours. He believed it, for now. Every line was a match, flicked casually against the gas-soaked floorboards of my life. I sat back, blinking at the screen, waiting for the heartbreak to crash in. But it didn't. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I copied every single draft into a folder and transferred them to a thumb drive. Then I opened her messages. I expected code names, burner numbers, maybe even encrypted apps. What I didn't expect was Slack. Yes, the office productivity tool. The one people use for pie charts and lunch polls. That's where Claire kept the affair alive. Apparently, Mr. C. Wolf was a freelance consultant, helping with her firm's vendor integrations. She'd invited him into her company's Slack as a guest user. But there was a private channel, just the two of them, named Coffee Thoughts. Adorable, really. Like they were brainstorming latte flavors instead of betraying vows. The conversation was animated. And by that, I don't mean graphic, thank God. I mean giddy, secretive, charged. Claire, he still kisses my forehead when he leaves for work. Like we're still something. C. Wolf. He's playing house. We're building a future. Claire, what if he finds out? C. Wolf. Then we go with Plan B. Plan B. Another flick of the match. They planned for my discovery. Prepare to fall back. These weren't people caught in passion. They were architects of a controlled demolition. Of me. I dug deeper. Traced his email. Cross-checked it with public records. Socials. LinkedIn. Christopher Wolf. Age 38. Freelance consultant. Recently divorced. Moved to our city 6 months ago. Tagged in won 2 mini rooftop cocktail shots. Had a LinkedIn bio that used the word disruptive 3 times. So this was the man. The new main character in her story. The one who wore Benedict and Grey. Who never powered on laptops because he had nothing to hide. Only secrets to keep. I glanced at the clock. 3:19 a.m. Upstairs, Claire shifted in her sleep. The house was quiet again, but the quiet wasn't peace, it was the silence after a detonation. I stood up slowly, slipped the thumb drive into my desk drawer, and shut the laptop. No confrontation yet. Not until I had the full story. Not until I knew what Plan B was. Because if she and Wolf had a strategy, well, so did I. By sunrise, the plan had already started writing itself. I didn't rage. Didn't pace. Didn't even pour coffee. Rage burns out fast, strategy lasts longer. Claire was still asleep upstairs, wrapped in the sheets like someone resting peacefully in the ruins they'd built themselves. I had no intention of waking her. Not yet. Instead, I sat at my desk, same one I'd used for taxes, birthday card lists, and planning our 10th anniversary trip that she postponed for work. This morning, it served a new purpose, evidence. I took the thumb drive I'd made last night and copied the contents to a secure cloud folder. Labeled it something subtle, Project Ledger, 2023 Q4. Password protected. If she ever logged into my files, she wouldn't look twice. Next, I called into work and told them I needed a few personal days. No one asked questions. I was always the guy who showed up early, left late, never missed a deadline. The kind of man who deserves personal days because he never used them. And now, I'd be using them to dismantle a reality that had been built on lies. The rest of the day, I moved in silence. Max followed me room to room like he knew something was off. He always did. Dogs are wired for truth, they don't fake affection, and they sure as hell don't smile while stabbing you in the back. By noon, Claire finally stirred. She came downstairs in sweats and a lazy bun, like the picture of innocent domesticity. No makeup. No rush. I sat at the kitchen table, sipping tea like a man who didn't just read every secret she never meant him to find. Morning, she said casually, heading for the coffee maker. Afternoon, I replied, not looking up. She chuckled lightly, as if I just made a dad joke, not a time-stamped accusation. Fair enough. She didn't ask what I was doing home. She didn't ask why I wasn't dressed for work. And that silence? That told me everything. She already thought I knew something. And she was trying to see how much. So I played my part. How was the rest of your night? I asked, just as she took the first sip of her coffee. She glanced at me, almost startled. Fine. Why? No reason. Just making conversation. I let it hang in the air like fog. She didn't press. She thought she had time. She thought I was still unsure. And that was her first mistake. I spent the rest of the day quietly collecting. Credit card statements, gas receipts, phone records, easy to pull up when you share a plan. I already had the Slack messages and the email drafts, but I wanted more than proof of the affair. I wanted proof of intent. Because love affairs are messy, but planned exits? Those require precision. And if she was plotting a life with Wolf, I needed to know what chapter I'd been written out of and which assets they were planning to split before I knew the story had ended. That night, after she fell asleep again, I checked her laptop one more time, just to see. The drafts were gone, deleted. Except not really, because she didn't know I'd already copied them. And she sure didn't know I'd also backed up her Slack messages before she deleted that, too. But the deletions confirmed it. She knew I was onto her. So the clock was ticking now. For both of us. The next morning, I called my buddy James. We hadn't talked in months, not because we weren't close, but because we were the kind of men who didn't need constant updates. We just showed up when it mattered. Logan, he answered, groggy. You alive? Barely, I said. Got time to talk? Always. Whose car we slashing? None yet, I said. But I need a lawyer. And someone who understands how to dig through financial records like a bloodhound. He paused, the grogginess evaporating. Claire. I didn't answer. Didn't need to. Say no more, he replied. I'll send a name. Quiet, smart, expensive. You're gonna want expensive. That was the thing about betrayal. It didn't just attack your heart. It went for the kneecaps of your life. Bank accounts. Retirement funds. Real estate. Claire and I didn't have kids. Just a house, 2 vehicles, and a shared checking account she hadn't touched much until about 4 months ago. Funny timing. That's when the transfers began. Small at first. A few hundred here, a couple thousand there. Nothing I'd noticed. Nothing obvious. But they were going somewhere. To an account with a name I didn't recognize. That night, I checked the Wi-Fi log. There it was. Christopher Wolf's phone had connected to our home network 3 separate times in the past 2 months. Once on a Wednesday when Claire said she was working late. Another on a Saturday I'd spent visiting my mom out of town. She hadn't even deleted the device from the list. It was right there. iPhone, CW. I stared at the screen and whispered to no one. You brought him into our house. The same house I repainted when she wanted the walls to feel warmer. The same one I retiled the bathroom in. The house I bled and budgeted and broke my back for. And she let another man drink coffee in it. Worse, she let him connect to the Wi-Fi like he belonged there. That night, I lay next to her again, wide awake while she slept like she hadn't detonated my life in slow motion. My hand rested on my chest. Not over my heart, but over the weight of what came next. Because I had enough now. Enough to ruin her in court. Enough to expose Wolf for who he was. Enough to walk out of this burning building not just alive, but holding the deed. And the most dangerous part? She still thought I was in the dark. Let her. Tomorrow, I'd light the first fuse. If you want the truth to land like a punch, don't swing it in private. Set the table. Invite a few witnesses. Add wine. Then pull the pin. I picked Friday night. Claire always loved hosting. Said it made her feel normal, which, in hindsight, might explain a lot. There's nothing normal about acting happy in a house you're plotting to escape. So when I suggested dinner, she lit up. Just the 2 of us? She asked, cautious but intrigued. Actually, I said, I was thinking a few people. A casual little thing. We haven't seen anyone in a while. She hesitated. Calculating. Who's coming? James and Rachel. Maybe your boss, if she's free. And hey, maybe that consultant guy, Wolf? You've mentioned him a few times. I figure if he's helped your team so much, it'd be good to finally meet him. She blinked. That half-second blink was all I needed. Oh, she said lightly. Yeah, I guess I could see if he's free. You should, I said, smiling like a man who had already picked out the coffin. She texted him that night from the bathroom, thinking I wasn't watching. He replied fast. Sure. Sounds fun. Of course he did. Friday arrived. I grilled steaks. Claire made her signature roasted vegetables. Poured our good wine. Everything had the feel of a charming evening among close friends, except I had tucked a hand grenade beneath the tablecloth. James and Rachel showed up first. James gave me a slight nod. He knew. Then came Wolf. I opened the door, and there he stood. Smug. Confident. Wearing a charcoal blazer and that same cologne I remembered from the jacket. His handshake was firm. His smile rehearsed. Logan, right? Pleasure, man. Claire's told me a lot. Likewise, I said, guiding him inside. Welcome to the house. The house he thought was already halfway his. Claire greeted him a bit too warmly, then tried to dial it back. Everyone noticed, but no one said a word. Rachel raised one eyebrow. James shot me a glance that said, "You sure about this?" I nodded once. Let the show begin. We sat down at the table. The conversation was light: weather, work, vacation plans that would never happen. Wolf was charming, I'll give him that. Polished, full of buzzwords and TED Talk energy. Claire leaned into every word. I waited until dessert. That's when I did it. "So, Christopher," I said, casually slicing a piece of pie, "how long have you been consulting for Claire's company?" He smiled. "About 5 months now. Time flies." Claire stiffened. I saw it. Subtle, but real. "Huh," I mused. "That's interesting. I thought you started 6 months ago." He faltered. "Oh yeah? Technically. I guess you're right." "Funny," I continued, "because I remember that was right around the time Claire started working late again. Long nights, locked laptop, cold dinners. Guess that was you, huh?" Silence. Claire dropped her fork. Wolf glanced at her. "Logan," she said quickly, her voice edged, "I don't know what you're implying." "I'm not implying," I said, voice level. "I'm informing." James sat forward. Rachel put her wine down slowly. I reached into the drawer beside the table and pulled out a small folder. Tossed it onto the table. "I'm not big on scenes," I said, tapping it. "But I am big on facts. And this right here? That's facts. Phone records, hotel receipts, Slack messages, email drafts, even a nice little quote about adjusting your timeline." Claire's face drained of color. Wolf looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. "I was going to handle this privately," I added. "But since you both decided to turn my house into a hobby shop for betrayal, I figured the least I could do was share the newsletter." Nobody spoke, so I leaned forward. "Here's the part that really sticks with me," I said, tone still calm, like a man giving a toast. "You didn't just lie. You planned it. You plotted a new life while eating dinner with me, while I folded your laundry, while I ironed your work shirts for a man who was sneaking into my house when I was out of town." Claire tried to speak. Stammered. "I didn't mean for—" "No," I cut in. "Don't insult me with meaning. You meant it every time you saved a draft. Every time he connected to our Wi-Fi. Every time you lied to my face and expected me to smile through it." Wolf finally spoke, trying to regain footing. "Look, man, I didn't come here to cause." "Too late," I said. "You caused it the minute you stepped into a marriage you didn't belong in. The minute you thought you were slick enough to play house in a home you didn't build." Rachel whispered, "Holy hell." Claire's hands were shaking now. Wolf looked like he wanted to crawl out through the garbage disposal. I sat back and sipped my drink. And then, calmly, "Claire, we're done. I already talked to a lawyer. You'll be hearing from her Monday. The house. In my name. The joint account. Closed. You can keep the wine. I'm sure Wolf brought better." Claire's mouth opened. Closed. No sound. Wolf stood, muttering something, but James blocked his exit. "Don't," James said quietly. "Sit. Let him finish." I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I just looked Claire in the eye and said, "You had everything. And instead of fixing it, you invited in rot." I turned to Rachel. "Dessert's a little heavy, I know." "Sorry." She smiled, shocked but impressed. James finally let Wolf pass. Claire stayed seated, trembling, staring at the folder like it might grow fangs. I stood, picked up Max's leash. And as I walked to the door, I said one last thing, quiet, steady. "You two wanted a timeline?" I turned back, smile razor sharp. "Consider it expired." They left that night like smoke from a blown-out candle. Quiet, shaky, gone. Claire tried texting. Called twice. I didn't answer. Wolf? He vanished like a scam artist who realized the mark had teeth. Probably moved on to his next consultation. Maybe he'll try a woman without a husband next time. Or at least, one who's less organized with her digital trail. That weekend, I packed. Not everything, just the essentials. The rest of it, let her stare at it and figure out what parts were real and what parts were props. I left her a note. "Claire, you mistook kindness for blindness. This was never about him. It was about you. You could have told the truth. You could have asked for out. Instead, you wrote a play and cast me as the fool. Curtains down now. Enjoy the silence." I didn't expect a reply. I didn't want one. What I wanted was distance, and I took it. New apartment. Sparse. Quiet. Clean. It smelled like paint, new carpet, and peace. No perfume lingering in the hallway. No soft humming while hiding something. Just me, Max, and the sound of a man rebuilding. I didn't cry. I didn't get drunk or take up bad habits. I went to the gym. I worked. I slept. And I breathed. Sometimes that's all survival is. The decision to inhale and exhale until the weight lifts. 2 weeks later, Claire emailed me. Subject line, closure. The message was short. I'm sorry. I didn't know how to ask for what I needed. I got scared. I was selfish. I never meant to hurt you like this. No request. No demand. Just a 5-sentence eulogy for a decade of partnership. I didn't reply. Not because I hated her, but because I no longer needed the apology. Forgiveness isn't always about the other person. Sometimes it's about unshackling yourself from the weight of waiting for something that may never come wrapped the right way. You want closure? Here's mine. She lied. I found out. I left. Simple as that. My therapist, I started seeing one, said I process things remarkably well. I told her that when someone shows you their real face, you don't stare. You nod, and you walk the hell away. 3 months after the implosion, I ran into Wolf. Of all places, a hardware store. He was in the paint aisle, staring at a can of eggshell like it owed him an apology. I recognized him before he recognized me. Maybe it was the way he stood. Shoulders still too confident for someone who'd been exposed as a fraud. He turned. We locked eyes. To his credit, he didn't flinch. Logan, he said, nodding like we were old pals. Hey. I said nothing. Look, man, I was out of line. I didn't know the full story. Claire told me. You believed her. I cut in, tone flat. She told you what you wanted to hear. Same as me. Same as anyone who made her feel trapped inside her own choices. He looked down. Maybe guilt. Maybe ego bruised from being spoken to without fear. She left town, he muttered. Took a job in Seattle. Said she needed a fresh start. I smiled. Not warmly. She always was good at starting over. Shame she was never good at staying. I didn't punch him. Didn't curse. I just walked away, leaving him to pick a shade of paint he'd probably never finish applying. That was revenge enough. It's been a year now. I still get the occasional message from mutual friends. Heard about you, and Claire. So sorry. She really messed up. You doing okay? And my answer is always the same. I'm better than okay. I'm free. There's a strange kind of peace that comes after betrayal. You stop fearing what might go wrong because it already did. And you survived. You stop questioning your worth because you realize it was never about being enough. It was about them being empty. Claire? She was a chapter, not the whole book. I don't hate her anymore. I don't miss her either. I remember her the way you remember a dream that turned into a nightmare midway, jarring, surreal, and best left in the dark. I wake up now without tension in my chest. I cook for one, and it tastes better than meals I made for two. Max curls up at the foot of the bed like a sentinel of loyalty. The best part? I don't need revenge anymore. I lived well. That's the kind of ending betrayal hates most. Because she wanted a story where she moved on first, got happier first, rebuilt first. But I didn't just rebuild. I upgraded.